writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack. Welcome to the Right Pack. This is David Allen Lucas, your host, and today we're going to talk about genres in the mainstream. What does it mean to be a nerd, a geek? What does it mean to be a fan of a particular genre? With us today is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Kayembe. I write gay fiction under Kaseka and Vita, the pen name. And I am totally a geek, and I'm excited for this.
Fedora Amos, and I'm an old geek, I guess. I don't see any other possibility. And I write Victorian whodunits as Fedora Amos, of course. And my protagonist is not a geek. She's a regular kind of person who happens to be a amateur sleuth.
I'm Matt Mcgraw. I'm an amateur writer, mostly short stories, and I'm also working on a not-for-kids picture book called Patrick the Spider with my cousin Jennifer, who you'll hear in two people.
I'm Nolan Nicolini, and I write sci-fi, fantasy, and nonfiction.
My name is Jennifer Stolzer. I'm an illustrator. I'm drawing spiders currently, as well as dogs and cats and anything anyone will ask me for. I also write fantasy and short stories and things.
And she did a very nice logo for Right Pack Radio.
She definitely did.
Jennifer.
You're welcome, you're welcome.
Okay, let me actually steal from Fedora here and use that as our launch point. Fedora, you mentioned your main character in your novels as being a quote-unquote normal person.
But a detective.
Detectives aren't normal.
Not a geek.
They're pretty much never normal, aren't
What is normal versus geekdom? And in fact, can you be a geek of anything, not just science fiction and fantasy? And I'm going to go ahead and say, in my own personal opinion, the answer is yes, most certainly. And I think this talk will kind of bear that out. But go ahead, I'm going to ask that question. What is normal versus geek?
Well, I think normal, at least in my frame of reference, is someone who tries to live within the society in which one finds oneself. People who are excessively independent, they can be nerds, or they can be psychos. They can be a lot of different things. But someone who actually tries to live within the parameters that society gives them, that's my idea of normal.
I like the that you use try there. I like try. My phrase is always normal people are weird people pretending.
Yes.
Because normal is what everyone wants you, what you think everyone wants you to be. You're quelling your nerddom in order to fit in and not make yourself too especially notable.
Now, I'd agree with that as long as there's the proviso that not everyone that tries not to fit in is automatically a nerd or a geek, because there's
That's
other
true.
ways you can try not to fit in.
Well, I want to jump in then because David said that he is of the opinion that everyone is nerdy in some way, geeky in some way. I share that opinion wholeheartedly. Like, I love it when people geek out about stuff. I don't really care if it's like a fantasy football game or, politics, or I think this was the best spaghetti ever that I ate today, or, Star Wars. I don't care. They're geeking out about something because they love it and they know a lot about it.
Yeah, but there are ways to not be trying to fit into the mainstream that aren't geeking out about it, is all I'm saying.
Well, and yeah, also isn't generically the term refers to like a specific cluster of interests, though, doesn't it?
There's
things
more than one
like,
definition.
like generally just things
It's
like
the
being...
difference between a noun and a verb. Geek.
Fair enough. Okay. But
The one thing he, sorry, I was going to say, I just want to jump right where he was going is that is, a lot of people think that geeks, at least, let me rephrase that. A lot of people when I was growing up, when the term nerd and geek was really a bad word to be called, thought that, you're nerdy, you're geeky because you liked either math, science, or science fiction. But actually, as genres are concerned, every genre has its geek. A few things that have come out with geek, of course, I'm going to choose sci-fi first, because it's the easiest one to throw at. You've got Comic-Con. You've got science fiction nerds of Star Wars, Star Trek, Babylon 5, and I can keep going. You've got superhero comic geeks. But we're not just limited to there. Neither by con or by genre of where Geekdom is. You've got mystery and thrillers with their con of Bouchercon, which if you are a mystery fan and you love mysteries and science fiction, not science fiction, mystery and suspense, thrillers, come to a Bouchercon if it comes to your area, or go to one because it travels the country every year. You also have movies that get made by crowdsourcing. For example, Veronica Mars, which was a TV hit, its fans didn't want to let it go, and they crowdsourced a movie that is right now, or at least was, out in the theaters and did pretty well last I saw.
I really love that idea of crowdsourcing things, but go on.
Yeah, because I do want to come back to that too, so I'll let you have that. Also, too, you've got, if you are a horror, hopefully it sounded correct rather than the other word, horror fan, there are horror fests around the country. I'm trying to say that very carefully because I have a habit of saying that word with the
Horribly?
WH instead of HORR.
Well, usually they're
I'm
kind
not
of
a
involved.
horror.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't there often a one where there's the other?
This is not a horror show.
So
Would a horror show be like a pimp convention?
That would be awesome.
now we have our Miami Vice Geekdom
So
going.
is that the I don't know, sister convention, whatever, to the other show convention?
Well, in
The horror
reality,
show
there are
and the
a lot of conventions do have a lot of that other activity going along nearby it. Let's just say,
No need for puns.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
can just, yeah.
all
You can
right.
go straight
We're not
there.
here to talk about the pluses or minuses of attending
Sex
conventions.
and
so-
violence and all.
We're talking
And-
about geekdom and nerddom.
And there's one other Geekdom
Which-
convention I'm going to throw in there,
doesn't involve sex.
and I can't think of the name of the
I didn't
convention.
say anything like that.
I couldn't resist.
You're in trouble, Matt. No, I'm just kidding. There's other conventions out there that are not genre specific in the sense of science fiction, mystery, and so forth. There are science conventions that occur where science fiction fans attend, either to get information or where the scientists are out there presenting stuff to the fans because the fans know that area so well and are trying to get feedback or other ideas. I think the Starship Project is one of those. Anyway, go ahead, Kathleen. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Okay. So genre subculture is part of this title, and mainstream media is another part of this title. And those didn't tend to meet so much when I was younger. And I was thinking about the internet and how much that changed things for me, like compared to people who I had read letters of, like, from their adult self to their 17-year-old self. It's on a WordPress site or something. And these people, a bunch of them were geeky in high school. And they were, writing back to themselves to say, you're okay. There are so many more people like you. You just will not find them until the internet explodes. And also cable and just the variety of TV shows and everything that we have, the ability to choose what we take in seems to have had a big effect on what we actually
I
see
think
on
that's
TV
the
now.
big thing is that nerd entering the mainstream I think has a lot to do with improving technology and capitalism.
And just
Well,
the
the-
fact that there are so many more people in the world.
Well, no, so many more choices. So now there aren't 4 networks. There
Yeah.
are 200 cable channels.
When you only
There's a lot
have-
more room.
When you only have 4, you have to go for just broadest common denominator, but when you have a ton more, you can specialize.
At a panel that I went to this weekend.
At where?
At St. Louis Comic Con. We're dating this this podcast right
Yes,
now.
we were at Wizard
We
World.
were all at Wizard World Comic Con over the weekend. Well,
And
most of
everyone
us were.
else was.
Most
I'm
of
so
us
jealous.
We're not always straight with you on the times, folks. You'll just have to deal with this.
But there was a panel delivered by several local video game makers. On the panel were many people, and I wish I had them in front of me, but look them up. You can probably find their lecture on YouTube, actually. But they mentioned something about how games have risen through what would be considered sometimes a dangerous reputation, and have grown and grown within the culture. So now that adults are playing games, and just how differently they treat each other now that there's gaming involved. One of the phrases I wanted to bring this up was the language. The moderator mentioned she wrote a book about language, game language, and bringing gaming to non-gamers. And something that divided the two was that people who like spend their time gaming have their own toolbox of words that they use. Man, we totally, I was totally tanking on that raid last night.
I'm thinking of one
jargon.
And the
actually, there's one phrase that I really hope they get rid of. I don't know if you know what you're referring to.
Well, it's the point was that it was separating like parents and children. Parents didn't understand what the children were talking about. Like the one anecdote was about a son who would play Minecraft all day, and the father would distance himself from the son because he didn't understand what the son was talking about, and would then sort of shame his son for playing so much Minecraft because it was, that's silly game you're playing, and then not approving of that in that sort of a I don't want to be involved way, and it put some friction between them. But when the father took just an hour to sit down and see exactly what the game was about and understand, he's talking about blocks, he's talking about creepers, he's talking about all these different mining things. Then, later, since he'd included himself in that world, and they felt a little bit closer, they both knew what they were talking about, when he said, hey, let's not play Minecraft this Saturday, let's go out to a park or something, the son didn't feel like he was being punished.
So it was a lot of communication issues that needed bridging so that the one generation that didn't understand the game, or in a larger sense, I guess, does not understand geekdom.
Mm-hmm. Get off of my lawn.
Yeah. Is then realizes, that they were raking my lawn. Oops.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what that thing was, that pitchfork-looking thing.
Yeah.
In an episode previously on the Right Pack, I kind of talked about the early version of what you just talked about. Mm-hmm. And that was Dungeons and Dragons when it first came out. There was even a movie with Tom Hanks, and I did confirm after that episode to look it up, and where Tom Hanks played a character in a story where he got lost inside the realm of real life, but inside the realm of Dungeons and Dragons, or a Dungeons and Dragons-like game, and it played on this hysteria that was going on in the mainstream with the geeks, and that the players who loved the genre or loved the game understood the truth behind it, whereas there was other pushes occurring. And in the whole entire thrust of the movie was, this game is so bad it breaks the people's minds, and you're going to need to put your kids in psychiatric care and so forth, which is definitely not the case. And we still see it occurring.
I think we're touching on something that is rather important here, because I think that young people have always in the past created their own languages to exclude older people, and I think that gamers today do the same thing. And it cuts both ways. That is, it is to exclude outsiders that aren't savvy and to include you in a specialized group that you feel a real part of. And that's what I think the genre does, as well as these groups that we're talking about.
And before I turn this over to Kathleen, because she's next on, she rose her hand next. But real quick, one difference between the time period I was talking about and the time period we have today, and you're 100% correct what you're saying, Fedora, is that in the time of the past, it was a small community. We were all sitting around a table like we are here talking, and we were playing the game. So your lingo slowly went out, and sometimes would mingle with other people's lingos, and things would come out to a norm, if you will, of a lingo. Whereas now in games, your lingo is international, mostly worldwide, and it's just gelling faster together. And thus you become a member of a community that's well outside your town, well outside your city, state, wherever you're at, and you become part of a world community.
And go visit friends who you haven't met in real life, like in real time, whatever, but
Meet
who you've
space.
known for years. Yes,
Yeah.
meet space.
And some people have even gotten married through games. I mean, they met on the game. They would say, hey, let's go meet. Oh, we got along so well for the last few years. Let's meet. Oh, wow, we really do get along. And they end up getting married. I mean, that's a short version.
I remember several months ago, maybe even a year or two ago, that there was a case of a runaway, and these, runaway 13-year-old, that they planned their runaway through gaming.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I'm glad they got away from their parents.
They got found out pretty fast.
Matt does not represent the feeling of the Right Pack as a whole.
Right.
I do represent my own feelings, though.
Yes.
Statements made by certain members of this
Right.
are not representative.
I hope they made it to the coast, formed their own little life.
Go ahead.
What I was thinking is genre in general has rules, and sometimes it's not even about languages, but it has conventions. And if you're familiar with the conventions, you understand it. So, for instance, my mom, who's not crazy about sci-fi, was picking up a sci-fi book, and it was just too hard for her to understand. I mean, she didn't enjoy it because it was too much work for her to get into the story, because she didn't understand she couldn't pick out what was important to follow along and what wasn't. And like romances are another thing. There are a lot of romances. I can tell for the first 3 chapters, generally, what are the key facts?
I took a class on science fiction by Bill Orm, and he was really good about kind of letting us know, all of us geeky people who were in the class, because we loved the genre, that there is kind of a promise that the writer is making to the reader, and that genre readers, like sci-fi fantasy readers, know instinctively, because we've been reading them so much, we know kind of the pattern. If this happens, then this is what needs to happen by the end. Whereas,
or at least it's possible that this will happen.
Whereas other things are important in other genres that, and we also know with books, sci-fi specifically, if we don't know what a term is and it's just been introduced, keep reading, it'll probably show up again and you'll understand it like within a couple pages of it.
And also, too, I'm glad you said other books, because every genre out there has its rules. Mm-hmm. Mystery is a very tightly written genre, generally speaking, and it has its specific rules of, be it the killer or the criminal will be found out in the end, and there will be justice, or in noir, the society will never be the justice that you're seeking.
But you'll be introduced to the killer in the first half of the book. That's an unwritten rule that you break it at your peril for a mystery.
Well, see, I'm just wondering, why is it so hard for, your mom to learn the sci-fi conventions, and then, you just, you want to do the work to pick up the mystery jargon? You're like, what is the difference there?
Well, I think part of it with my mom, if she doesn't know what a word means, she wants to look it up. So it's really frustrating to her that there are all these words that she can't find them. And she knows, because she actually has read enough sci-fi to know, that if she just keeps reading, she'll get it from context.
Right.
But it's just too much. Again, she doesn't enjoy those types of world-building exercises in her head. It's not that she can't do it, it's that it's not fun for her.
In science fiction, in fantasy, I'll even say this for the other genres, especially mystery, thriller, that I write, that Fedora write. What all these stories do is they recreate myth. We are writing the modern myth. Science fiction and fantasy are especially happily notorious for doing that, but we are writing myth. And let me go ahead and I'm going to show mystery, and then I'm going to show science fiction real fast. Mystery. Hercule Poirot by Dame Agatha Christie. Does anybody know where Hercule Poirot's first name came from?
Hercules?
Hercules.
Jinx.
His first 12 short stories, I think it's 12.
Was that the first one?
His first short stories were based on
The Labors of Hercules.
The Labors of Hercules.
Oh, it wasn't
I read it.
You gave us a hint when you said the number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then let's look at Star Wars.
Oh, just to be geeky about that wasn't the first book. The first book that he appeared in was Mystery at Styles.
Yeah, but
You're established as geeky.
yeah.
Technically
Your geek card
correct.
can-
The best kind.
Alright, so-
The whole entire background of Star Wars is based on various different religions that George Lucas looked into.
Oh, the Hero of a Thousand Faces.
And the
That
Hero
was
of
really
a Thousand Faces.
That was one of those books that everyone in Hollywood read for 10 years.
Joseph Campbell.
And one thing, from what I understand and what I read, I did not read it, I watched it on the Masters of Science Fiction, I believe was the name of the show at the time. George Lucas was actually in a car accident because he had a different path that he was going to go down in a career.
Dark Side?
Yes, he was going down the dark side, maybe in a corporate world. I don't know.
He just
You
didn't
can
have
make
his
your
lights
debate on
on.
whether or not he was headed to the dark side or ended up at the dark side.
Okay. But anyway, he ended up in a car accident, ended up in the hospital for quite a while, and that's what he ended up reading Joseph Campbell, and that's what slowly began the process. Now, I want to go back to one thing real fast before we lose it. Matt had talked about, and I had brought up about Veronica Mars being crowdsourced.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if anybody out there knows, but there are multiple if you're a Star Trek fan, there are multiple Star Trek fan movies that are coming out, and they have been out, or fan series that come out.
Fan films.
Fan films.
Yeah, not movies, fan films.
Fan films. Sorry, wrong geeky term. My apologies.
Alliteration.
Yes, but two of them, in fact, are being created with big stars in them. For example, two Star Trek stars, Walter Koenig and Tim Russ, are creating one called Star Trek Renegades, and they are crowdsourcing, and they've been getting lots of money to do this.
And by the way, it's legal to do. They found a way to do it because people are donating. They're not buying.
Right. And another one that's being done, and has, last time I saw, had rose, I think, in the 6th digit now, financing wise, and they're getting ready to actually use a lot of that money to fund the real film that's behind what they were getting the crowdsourcing for the first time, and that is Axanar, the Battle of Axanar, which in the Star Trek world, yes, okay, here I go super geek.
Go for it.
Axanar is part of the 4-year war between the Federation and the Klingons. Basically, the gloves came off, and they went at it. And one of the main characters in this film is the hero to James T. Kirk. Now, who's starring in this? Richard Hatch. Michael Hogan from Battlestar Galactica. Richard Hatch is from both Battlestar Galacticas. My mind just went blank, but a very well-known villain, or another, I'm sorry, I can't think of the actor's name, but he played Martok in Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and there's other ones that are they're volunteering their time, whatever, to get this out, and it's because of the love of the genre and of the characters.
That's the thing. With the crowdsourcing, this was really exciting to me about it, is that how your movie is financed, or how anything is financed, defines a lot of how it's made. And behind every Hollywood movie, every Hollywood big blockbuster, there's a dude in a suit who would just as easily be working at an applesauce company. He has no creative impulses. He doesn't have any kind of vision.
He's thinking about the bottom line. You respect that man.
He is thinking about the bottom line, and he wants it to be like applesauce, where it's like you do the same thing each time, and you get the same profit each time, and it's reliable, and then you cut labor costs or whatever. But it's not like that in movies. The same thing won't work twice. Crowdsourcing is great because it comes out of love. Donations, those people are just offering their money. They don't expect to get anything out of it other than the profit. Or other than the product.
Yeah.
That's all they want. It's love. And that's going to give the artists involved so much more freedom to just do the things they think are right and just try to utilize that money as best they can. And there isn't a cynical asshole in a suit and a tie looking to just undercut everything.
Just real quick, a couple of examples that you can see this in work is watch the movie Hitchcock, which is all about Alfred Hitchcock creating Psycho. There, you not only have the asshole in a suit, to borrow Matt's term, you also had back then an entire bureau that dealt with standards and whether or not things were too racy and so forth. Another thing to do is get your hands on any interview with Gene Roddenberry where he's talking about the beginnings of Star Trek, and you will hear what he had to go through to do this. I'm not sure who was next.
I was just gonna bring up that crowdsourcing is nice and all, but two very different examples. Since all the power is in the creator's hand, you're not guaranteed to get what you think you want. And there's a certain false ownership for those who kick in large amounts of money sometimes. An example of this working properly is Double Fine, and they just broke records by kickstarting their point-and-click adventure Broken Age, which they got millions more than they planned, and made something truly beautiful that everyone seems to love. On the other hand, there's Oculus, which was just recently purchased by Facebook. People they kicked into Oculus to produce the Oculus Rift, which is a VR headset for video game. And then Oculus, they produced the headset, it was looking good, people were getting really excited about it, and then Facebook bought them. And some specific investors were very upset by this. They thought since they'd invested a lot of money, they had a right to speak up about where the company was going. So there's a little friction when you're looking at Kickstarting as Kickstarting gets really big and becomes a viable means of funding things.
That's a business school problem, is they teach them there that every startup wants to get bought.
Mm-hmm.
None of them think, maybe we should just stick it out and own our own thing.
I think that the purchase of Oculus by Facebook is actually a really good idea. I might be in the minority, but that's the topic for another time.
Matt loves to talk about love, and he was talking about love earlier, but I wonder where's the love for the people who originally created the creation, the characters, the Klingons, but Jar Jar Binks, whoever.
Jar Jar Binks.
Where's the
Jar
love
Jar.
for them?
There is no love.
There is no love for Jar Jar Binks.
And they're the ones that created it in the first place. Don't they deserve something?
Well, that's what.
Work
That's
for
why.
hire.
What?
What?
I'm confused about the question.
If I'm
Like
following
the
it,
people who
People
say,
like us who do the writing in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I
They
think,
kind of got left out of your equation, didn't they?
well, I guess.
Not
no.
really. I think he was.
No.
It was implicit that the people making the movie were the ones that were responsible for the created act.
Well, that's
I didn't hear that.
That's the people who, like, the donations, those are the people that the donations will get thrown at. Because they're the ones who, like, writing things is not a good financial investment. You're not going to do it as, like, just a cynical, like, I want to make a lot of dosh. I'm just going to write a book and people will love it. It's not a good
you
plan.
mean that doesn't happen?
Well-
And just for the record, no, it doesn't.
wait.
Go ahead.
It happens sometimes, but it's like getting hit by a comet when you're in orbit around the sun. Like, it's not going to happen.
Statistically slim.
Well, how does it feel, though, if somebody steals it from you, even if
Well,
it wasn't worth any money in the first place?
This is a great lead into another part of Geekdom, which is fanfic.
Oh, the
love
Steelers.
it.
Piracy.
Let's burn them all.
And let's-
hey.
And I think I've said this on a previous episode of Write Back, I forget which one, but there has been always a debate in the writing field, okay, about fanfic. Does it count? Is it good? And a lot of times, authors will literally say at a convention or at a conference something along the lines of what I'm about to quote, and that is, fanfic does not exist. If it exists, and by the way, I might love reading what you're writing, if it exists, and that means I have to acknowledge it exists, which means somebody on my staff or in my agents or my publishers would have to sue for break of copyright. Thus, as far as I am concerned, fanfic does not exist.
There's a way around
There
that.
are ways around it, but you are playing with other people's copyright. Star Trek fanfic originally, there is the novels that are blessed by Paramount to be Star Trek
The expanded
novels.
universe.
The expanded universe. I call that fanfic, just published fanfic. And then there's fanfic. And Paramount originally started going after those people for breaking the copyright. Now, I don't know what caused them to back off. But something caused them to back off and go,
The
oh,
fan
wait a minute.
rebellion. That's what caused them to
It
back
could be
They're
a
like,
fan
oh,
rebellion.
we're
That's
killing
how
our
it
fan
happened with
base.
Star Wars.
Some asshole in a suit made a cost-benefit analysis.
And he was wrong.
Are you going to have to bleep me later? I'm sorry.
No, this is rated PG-13. We're good.
Okay, some jerk in a suit
Okay, good, because that was
Made
your
it-
last one before we have to.
Yeah.
made a cost-benefit analysis and figured out that they would lose more from the fans leaving than they would get out of protecting it.
Yes.
Right.
I do want to point out that I love fan fiction. I write fan fiction. I have a lot of friends in fan fiction. All that stuff. Okay, and I know of a bunch of writers who started out in fan fiction and kind of got their under the bed novels, like the ones that you could never publish because they're just horrible, got like all the writing kinks out of their systems.
They practiced.
Yes.
And they
fan
practiced in
fiction.
public,
Exactly.
where they could put it on fanfiction.net
Oh, yeah.
and somebody would give it a -12,
And
and
people,
they would learn it.
you can't do that on fanfiction.net.
Oh.
Minus 12. There's no rating system. Oh my god. You get a bad comment. All right, so yeah, so there's that, and then they went on to publish their stories that were their own, not fan works at all, professionally. And
Yeah, it's
Sandra
sort of
Clare's
like
one.
in art. You go to as painting. One of the earlier things you do is make copies of the masterpieces.
You're expected to
Yeah.
learn how things work, and I
Right.
think that's something a lot of fan fiction writers, at least in my experience, have learned through trying to create or recreate other people's characters.
Some of the most horrifically self-indulgent things I've ever written were fan fiction.
Yeah.
I self-inserted myself into Sailor Moon and I saved all their butts.
I will have you know that when I was in first grade, I did that on the Starship Enterprise. So there was no internet at that point. So it's a thing that people do.
So
And
you
just
weren't
real
the
quick-
original Mary Sue.
No.
I've read the
No.
original Mary Sue. It was published in a magazine. I don't remember the name of the magazine. It's really entertaining. It's a poem.
Really?
Yeah, it's a poem. It was sort of like a parody of the Mary Sue writing, but that's where the term Mary Sue came from. And if you can find it, which I'm not helping much with, you may be doing a Google search for the original Mary Sue, but it's
I'm
very
sure
cute.
Probably.
So-
It's on Wikipedia.
Probably
Even
impossible.
though Kathleen thinks she saved the Enterprise more times than she can count.
No, just the
Being-
once. I published that
Okay.
in my class.
Oh, really? Where
I
can we
illustrated
find
it.
Going super geekdom here. Former and still currently a game master for Star Trek the role-playing game on the original FASA series. Yeah, the Enterprise was saved multiple times.
Yeah.
And as well as other starships.
A game master, by the by, or a dungeon master, if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons,
Same term.
is the evil mastermind behind the plot that you, the player, are putting your character through. The dungeon master, the game master, is always trying to kill you.
We-
Especially
That's not true.
Just to explain, we
I
don't
just
want to
maybe I just
exclude
always
anyone.
end up being
Yeah,
nearly
really.
dead. I freak out.
Get that nerddom out there. Everyone's now in the Dungeons and Dragons fandom because they all know what a dungeon master is.
Oh,
Yes.
so
There-
much now that they're having a D&D Next instead of 5th edition.
There you go.
Oh, can I also mention that there are RPGs, role-playing games, for TV shows and movies and
Yes.
stuff?
Like Firefly?
Firefly.
Someone was getting their
There's-
manual signed by Nathan Fillion over the weekend. I
Oh,
saw them in
love it.
line.
Did you tell him your toaster in there nearly killed me?
I didn't get to actually talk to Nathan Fillion, but yeah, that toaster was evil.
It was. So, yeah, Firefly, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, TV shows
I'm gonna
have
take you-
RPGs.
Yeah, I'm going to take you back even backwards in time because I've been playing RPGs. My parents would never love to hear me say this because they were of the original mindsets, RPGs are horrid and they will take you to hell type aspect.
They were what?
Horrid.
Horrible.
Oh, okay.
Wrong word you thought I said.
I just wanted to be sure.
You wanted to bring it back to the beginning
But-
of this.
But you did have Dungeons and Dragons originally. Actually, it was Roundheads or something before that, which is what Dungeons and Dragons became. You had, besides Star Trek, the role-playing game, you had the superhero comics. Marvel had turned into a role-playing game. You had Battlestar Galactica, the old version, who was turned into a role-playing game. You had James Bond turned into a role-playing game. So all the people out in the world who don't want to claim they're geeks but are James Bond fans, guess what? You are part of a geekdom. Settle in.
Okay, so I just realized you were talking about the early back in the day, and
Yes, I keep going with that. Go ahead.
and I've also been thinking about the TV shows that are on television right now, full of vampires,
Mainstream.
superheroes, witches, all that stuff. Mainstream.
Spreading the
Mainstream.
culture.
Exactly. And people who would never have read the Game of Thrones series, if I had handed it to them, are now enthralled by the TV show. And I'm wondering, is it cool to be geeky now? And are people who were geeky before, admittedly, are we hipsters?
Can I add?
No,
can I
I'm
add
not
one?
a hipster.
I don't know.
I'm going to add one question. Yeah, we're not.
I'm ready to be a hipster.
So I'm going to add
Bring
one
it on.
question. One question that I want everyone to answer as well as what Kathleen just asked is what do you perceive going to happen in the future if geekdom comes out of fashion? Because everything goes in and out.
We go exactly right back to where we came from.
We
The
will be
internet.
back home again. We've gone on a grand adventure, and now we're back in the Shire.
Yeah, it's like there's a castle, which is the geekdom, and then there's some outlying hamlets. And what's going to happen is the Mongols are going to show up. They're just going to burn and pillage all those outlying forces, and we're going to be safe in our walls.
All it's going to be left is the nerds and the village full of fantasy football players.
Although in this
Are they guarding
in this metaphor, Mongols are
How about the orcs?
lack of fashion.
How about the orcs from Yeah, from the Lord of the Rings, right, going up against the main city. Rivendell. There you go.
The White City.
Wait,
the White Tree.
wait. Do
of
we get
Numenor.
elves? Do we get hot elves?
I am
Can we
an
have
elf.
elves?
I'm
Because
an
then
elf.
I'm okay with it.
There's no
There you go.
Legolas in this.
Hey, wait a minute, I can shoot.
Well, I think,
Okay.
but
We
wait a
got off
minute.
topic somehow.
With the internet,
Keep doing this.
I'm not sure that it will actually go out of fashion. I think it'll be less popular because with the internet and with all these different choices, there'll always be a niche. The difference is it'll become a niche thing again, and it'll be more of an in-group versus out-group instead of mainstream.
Well, maybe it'll never really go out of fashion. I mean, it's entirely possible that now that, like, the internet exists, and there aren't, like, 4 channels on the television
No, I'm
or
saying
just
that
the radio.
it'll always. My point is, it'll always be there and it'll always
Yeah.
be available. But we might not be getting the TV. Well, we'll still be getting the TV actually because there's 200 channels now.
Well,
but
then
not
it's a
everyone.
dead technology, but-
The ratings will be lower.
I believe that the Big Bang Theory will never end. So I have a feeling that nerddom will never end as long as people are
They'll-
exposed to it through the Big Bang Theory.
They're like any other sitcom. They'll run out of ideas eventually.
I've got one thing to say, but I'm going to let Donna go first, and then... Go ahead.
Well, I forgot what it was. No.
Oh, okay. Real fast.
We're so off topic, we wiped it from your brain.
Real fast
I'm so sorry.
before I lose it, because with what Jen just said. Well, a lot of times what you're seeing now in mainstream television is a combination of the genres and a throwback or a throw to other geek fandoms. Let me use Castle. Castle, those of you who don't know, somehow were buried under a rock.
In which case, they need to find you.
Yes, Nathan Fillion came through Firefly and some other Joss Whedon stuff, and here he is on Castle. And if you ever watch Castle, a lot of the lines that he uses either are written by the writers or things that he does himself. There are allusions to Firefly as throwing it up to the other
Which
geeks.
I always
And
thought
there's other
Enterprise needed more Quantum Leap references.
Yeah.
I really thought they did.
That would have kept it alive.
That
yeah.
would've-
That's a really weird thing to want.
No,
I
it's
thought it
not.
could have improved it.
Quantum Leap, man.
One of you, either one of you two.
I'm retarded?
I'm wondering though, will genres ever really be out of fashion? And I ask this because there are sci-fi books that I have not read in sci-fi English classes that are not considered sci-fi or shelved with the sci-fi, but oh my goodness, they are dystopias.
I think the
Are we-
genres will change.
I think the whole
Whoa.
thing has a whole lot to do with money.
Yeah.
Money,
Yes.
money. Because if you don't have
Applesauce.
money, a great deal of affluence, you cannot afford this niche stuff. You've got to work your butt off all day long and all night too, probably.
Yes, agreed.
No, but I think the genres, crossing genres. In fact, I think one of my lifetime goals is to write at least a short story in every genre. So right now, the sci-fi story that it's set in a spaceship. So clearly, outer space science fiction. But it's a murder mystery. So that's genre crossing. I think
Hey,
genre
hey.
crossing.
Yeah, you're mixing your genres.
But it's very popular as long as people like reading it. The problem is it's harder to sell it.
Well, except for genre crossing has been happening
Forever.
for decades. Yes.
Well, and it's a good way
Since
to
there were
sell
genres.
things.
Yeah.
Genres are just to sell something. Books seldom fall, like for
They're loose
instance,
categories.
Those categories, yeah.
a lot of thrillers have a romance element. A lot of romances are also something else.
Yeah,
You know.
Not if they can help it.
the Hunger Games stuff. Because I finally saw that movie, the first one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is it like
Finally saw it? Wow. Go ahead.
She's been putting it off.
Go on. Keep going.
Dystopian
Keep going.
I
a
saw
dystopian adventure? A romance? Like
I wouldn't
what?
call it a romance.
Nah,
it's not
the
a romance.
was kind of
Wasn't the
played up.
romance like the primary part, though?
No,
No.
it was saving the sister.
In the movie, maybe.
Wait.
But no.
She saves the sister in the first, 5 minutes.
Now everyone please note the
No
argument.
spoilers now.
I rest my case. Thank you for proving my point.
But, it's a lot of... Okay, genres might be one of those things like stereotypes or any other kind of thing where our broad categories are actually not relevant to reality very much, and they're really just for ease of mind.
Yes.
They're like tags more
For-
than anything else. You can tag something 50 ways.
Yeah, you
And
know.
it annoys some authors more than others, and it annoys some people more than others. It annoys me personally that Charlene Harris all of her books are with the mystery sections at the local library, even the books that have vampires in them, you know.
That is probably why I've been unable to find certain books in certain vampire and werewolf and shifter series.
That's why the card catalog is your friend.
The paranormal investigation series. I love paranormal investigation.
Oh,
That's,
I need to introduce you to an author. Go ahead, though.
That's like procedural crime stories meets fantasy.
No, but this is why you look it up in the catalog. That will tell you what section it is, and different libraries put them in different sections.
It's not just the
Folks,
libraries.
if you
It's
take
bookstores.
nothing else from this session, look at your card catalog.
Yeah.
Or the
They're
computer,
online now.
because that's where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got rid of card catalogs after the Ghostbusters went in, and like,
I still want one of those as furniture in my house.
Yeah. I remember being taught in grade school how to use a card catalog.
Anyway, back to Geekdom. And
Yes.
Ye
Oh,
old
genres.
card catalog.
Yes.
keep them in mainstream.
Rest in peace, the Dewey Decimal System. Yes, go on.
Anyway, so what do you think is there anything out there that is not geeky?
Or could not be geeky.
Could not be geeky.
Well, I think I've heard some kind of definition of geekdom, which is just like being abnormally interested in something. Like, I think genres are for people who aren't terribly interested in books. You know, they're like...
Genres make it easier for people who
Yeah.
aren't heavily interested, but
It's
frankly, people that are interested like them too, because it also is a guidepost. It's like, well, you know.
Well, yeah, but if you're like a person who's interested, you understand that they're just guideposts. If you're a person who's not that interested, you think they're like absolute. But
That's true.
it's just to make things easier for those people who...
To sell their stuff.
You know, they're not going to overcome hurdles to get into your book.
12 labors.
So you're saying that genreification is
Nice word.
I like that.
It's for normals.
is for the people who don't actually know anything about it. It's
Yes.
like the label on the box.
I'm gonna go a little bit different from where Matt's going with that.
And I'm not trying to be condescending about this. I understand you have other things on your plate, but that's how it is.
I'm gonna go-
That's okay. I don't know how
Applesauce
you
makers, you.
I'm gonna go to
don't
Melanie's
understand.
mom for a second.
I hate applesauce.
If you think back to early part of this conversation, which God knows when it occurred,
Yeah.
Melanie was talking about her mom does not read science fiction because she gets lost in it, basically. I think one thing with genres is that it tells the reader what rules to expect in a story. It doesn't matter if you are genre mixing, and believe me, I genre blend like crazy. But if you are genre blending, you are following the rules of each of those genres but putting them together. And if you break one of those rules, then you're not in that genre, technically. At
You
least in
better
my
have a
opinion.
good reason.
You better have a good
Yeah,
reason.
that's the thing. You can break a rule, but have a good reason.
To use the geometry reference, you know, every
Whoa.
square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square.
Right.
Every you can have a romantic story in any situation, but only in certain situations is it actually a romance novel.
Okay, and I'm with you, and here's the evidence. Is Star Wars, the first three, or actually either of them, but mostly is Star Wars with Han and Leia,
Oh, I thought it was
a
Luke
romance.
and Leia.
Well, it
No,
started off with
that's
Luke and
the
Leia for the first
incestuous
one.
part where we
Yeah,
didn't
that's
know.
that's the
Yeah.
first one.
Yeah.
And she was just trying to
She
make
is
Hans
the only.
jealous.
She is the only.
Oh.
Well,
That's what they
she
said
is
after.
the
That's
only.
not our debate right now.
Yeah. Anyway, but the question is
Well,
would
he's
that be
a
considered to
nerd.
be a romance?
I think that romance is a part of it. It's a subplot. And it's like,
Romantic.
yes, it is romantic, but that is not the main storyline. And the main storyline,
Is about a guy who becomes a Jedi and then decides to forego women forever, and also he
doesn't.
has to rescue his father.
According to the rules of the Jedi Order set forth in the three prequels, he has to have a sterile, weird alien existence from now on.
well,
Yeah,
that's
He
okay.
becomes
I'm
a priest.
The Metachlorians will take care
Which
of that
is
for him.
which tells you a lot more about George Lucas than it tells you about anything else.
Well, but,
I would
okay,
second
so
that,
this,
yes.
I would say that the subplot for Luke and Leia is a romance, so it had a romance for a subplot. Now, the first
You
one
mean
would
Luke and Han? I mean,
wait.
yeah.
No! We're back to fan fiction! What are you doing?
Luke/Han, you dirty.
Hey, I will have you know, it's probably the hottest thing ever.
Just for the
Luke and
record, I
Han
think
are
I
made
just
for
pretty
each other.
shades of red. Okay, anyway.
Wait, which one comes before the slash? And I forget what that means.
It depends on who's topping
Yes.
or
Which
what order you choose
is
to
the
put them
one
in.
Horror!
is the one ahead of the slash the one that's on top?
Okay, let's get back to this. Stop.
Sound off in the comments section if you have an opinion.
Yes.
What I was about to say is Amidala and Anakin Skywalker technically wouldn't count as a romance because apparently romances can't end tragically according to the modern definitions of the genre.
But you also
Really?
need
They
a
didn't read-
Yeah,
character.
well, if it's a romance
You need to have
novel.
characters to have a romance.
Yeah,
Like that's the
you can't
basic.
have a romance between two planks of wood. So therefore, it is not a romance.
I like
Maybe
Natalie
this is a
Portman. Leave her
poor
alone.
example.
Okay.
She had to deliver those lines like everyone else.
I know. But one thing, I'll just say this. No, I'm not. That's off the topic.
Yeah, we're done.
I like
Wow.
though that I can like read a comic book in public and not have people look at me funny now.
Yeah,
Like,
I do too.
I
Oh,
used to read
Kindles.
Sandman in public, and it was like, what is wrong with that child?
Kindles, ebooks are really useful for that because you can read any book you want and people don't know. They don't see the embarrassing covers anymore.
They don't
Yes.
even know that you're reading smut.
All right, and then
or that
back,
you're
back,
reading,
they'll
because
be
you
able to
might
tell
be
from your
playing
face.
Candy Crush.
no, but back to comic book. How many of you have walked through a comic book store lately and noticed what's being turned into comic book?
Yes.
All the things.
Twilight.
Well, no, okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
God.
let me get away from the Twilight series.
I'm sorry.
And in fact, I'm even going to get away from some of my, in my opinion, better stories that have been being turned into it. But let's go to the classic. Robert Louis Stevenson's novels are being turned into comic books.
I hear Abe Lincoln hunts
Sherlock-
vampires now.
What?
I hear
Yeah,
Abe
but that's
Lincoln
not a
hunts
comic
vampires.
book. That's a novel.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, but
Sure,
it's still a
it's a
genre
comic
mashup.
That was a novel?
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
It was a
Um,
good novel.
but staying with what I'm trying to say,
we'll talk about it later.
Jane Austen's some of Jane Austen's novels
Sorry,
are
I just,
being turned
I just
into.
went to Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
What would you say about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which has characters from a bunch of different classics
Oh, that
all
movie
coming together?
sucked.
Ultimate fan.
No, it's a
I know it was a comic,
comic.
book, too.
Let's comic book first.
It was a lot better.
You will respect Sean Connery.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes,
But
that was genre mashing.
That trend interests me because it feels like people are reading graphic novels more than they're reading actual novels.
Why
I
can't
think
we
people
call
are
them
doing
comic
both.
books?
Because I was using the
no
word novel
wonder.
twice in the same sentence.
Oh, I don't like the. I'll just go out. I don't like the term graphic novel. They're comic books.
Well, I
you don't
think-
need to dress them up.
I
They're
think
comic
that
books.
these
They were
different-
always good.
The difference is length.
Yes.
Length, I would think.
Length and whether it ends.
Right.
Like if it's
So
a
a
complete
graphic
story.
novel is a complete story
Yeah.
that's big.
That takes up numerous
Multiple
comic
issues.
books.
Or a big
Think-
trade paperback.
Think of trade book. Yeah, think of a trade book, but being a complete novel inside that trade book.
That's a graphic novel.
It's a novel with pictures.
Okay, if it has some like technical meaning, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
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 Thank you.
It's a novel told in pictures.
If nothing else, take away that graphic novels are an okay term.
I'm glad we've all learned something today.
And on that note, I hate to cut this short because this conversation has been fun, and if nothing else, hopefully entertaining to our listeners. Please, as Jen said earlier, leave comments. You can leave comments on the Right Pack page on Blog Talk Radio, where you are probably listening to this. You can leave comments on our Facebook page, or you can also send us tweets at Right Pack Radio.
Especially leave comments if you are an out and proud geek and you've been seeing people who are not necessarily like you coming into your culture and how you feel about it.
Outsiders.
And if you have just discovered the wonders of geekery and are totally in love and want to know all the things and how it's been to learn about something that you may not have understood before,
You outsider.
tell us your thoughts. We want to know.
Please, we do want to know. We want to hear from you.
We
Also,
want to
too,
convert you.
though we have lots of topics we can cover. One of our two or three episodes ago came from one of our listeners, and that was a question about utopia versus dystopia. Send us your ideas. If you want us to cover something, send us your ideas, and we may turn it into an episode. So thank you all for listening, and catch us next week on Right Pack Radio. Theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her. Right Pack Radio would like to thank STL Books for allowing us to record in their office. STL Books is a online bookstore specializing in new and used high-quality literature, children's books, and books written by or about St. Louis. Please visit them online at www.stlbooks.com or find their store on the Amazon.com website.